Hello, RGM personnel. Who are you? Hello, here's Martin Schweiger speaking. I
Martin, it's
cannot,
Rich.
I cannot hear you.
Martin, it's Rich.
Rich. Okay. Ah, before it was always Rich iPhone.
Yeah, I know. I just I'm using my laptop,
Okay. Your audio,
and
your audio is
for
a
some
bit weak, but I put you up. So good to hear you. Very nice. Yeah.
for
Uh,
some reason this it pops up as RGM. I mean, that's the name of my computer, but
okay.
I, I don't know where the hell that came from. But oh well.
Ri very, very likely is Richard Gerald um, McDonald.
Correct.
Okay. So your second name is Gerald.
Gerard.
Gerard. Sorry for mispronouncing the thing. Hello, Roland. Hi, Roland Rull. Dr. Roland Rull. I have currently two very funny cases. One case is about, it's not so funny. Obviously, there is 10 p.m., so I can share from my experience. It seems to me that I have a very unusual patent attorney's job because all the time I see sole inventors that start a project and then they somehow run into me and then I give them some advice, which is now after 4 or 5 years in this community quite refined. And I have seen and heard a lot of things, even more than before. And so I need to share this. And the second thing is, and that someone asked me about the validity of a PhD thesis in Germany and uh, and whether we can use our prior art search tools to invalidate a PhD thesis. And it seems that it works. And I was really surprised on the prerequisites that academics have in order for a PhD thesis to be seen as valid or non-valid. This is a very remote matter for a patent attorney, but as you can imagine, I'm immediately interested if I see some feedback. So, and it's about whether or not we take prior art from scientific literature into account. And I find that very interesting. So, Roland, can you share with us, because you're the only one here in this area who has a PhD?
Well, interest. Can you hear me? I might have. Can you hear me, Martin?
I hear you.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
okay. So, first thing, I have never been confronted with that interesting idea trying to invalidate a PhD thesis by prior art searches. That would suggest that a PhD supervisor who should be a person who really knows his field of science or of technology is completely unaware of what is going on in the world.
Is this really the
So,
case? Because I remember, I mean, I'm now 60 years old, and I remember when I was in my 20s that it was very modern in Germany that you could buy your PhD thesis. And the model was always that some professor makes some extra money and then they would sell the thing to you.
and that was in science and technology or in humanities? I have to ask this question, sorry.
I'm, I'm an engineer, so now guess what?
Okay, I guess so.
Yeah,
But
and the funny thing was because I was interested because I would have liked to have a PhD title, right? Everybody wants to have that, but I didn't want to invest years that were necessary, and also I didn't see much purpose in doing that because you essentially I tried it for 2 months and I just dropped it because I couldn't stand that atmosphere. So I admire everyone who can really give in 5 or 6 years of his lifetime to get out with a PhD thesis, because the time spent there, I could see after 2 months, was really lost. And so I met this guy, and it was near Düsseldorf. And about 5 years ago, this guy was somehow in a criminal court proceedings about exactly that, together with a few professors who contributed to that mafia. And so I was just confirmed that it was good to not invest more time into buying a PhD thesis, but this exists. So and currently the people in Germany are shooting against each other. So someone asked me, "Can you do a prior art search in engineering against the PhD thesis?" And we do not only want novelty, we want literal overlap.
Okay. Interesting, interesting. Well, I earned my PhD by the Winston Churchill method, which means blood, sweat, and tears. Hours, days, and weeks, and years in the laboratory.
Next time we meet, you must show me your scars on your back. Yeah.
Well, we are talking essentially about, yeah, scars in the soul. But seriously, when I have nightmares, and well, let's not say nightmares, but when I have unpleasant dreams,
Uh-huh.
not unpleasant dreams about what I'm doing here as a patent attorney, or what I have been doing for more than 20 years now. It's always some reminiscence of lab experiences, of experiments which didn't go right.
Well, I had thought that your PhD father has abused you.
Oh, no. He was not of that disposition.
I,
No.
I love it. I can see David Karloff's face when we talk about this.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead. So actually, yeah, so these are my two issues.
Martin, I must tell you one thing though. You've inspired me to just start weightlifting. So thank you.
Oh, cool. Very cool. Please post. Yeah. I'm creating a community of old white fat guys like myself, and I want to show our progress. Yeah.
But Martin, you just revealed my password, old fat.
Oh, okay, but you should not use it because it's so obvious, I wanted to say. Okay, Roland, back to you. Tell us about your abuses that you went through in your experiments.
No, well, it's the daily fight for results, and when you watch scientific series, some stuff like that, or documentaries, it's always the impression that it's so easy, everything comes, you get the results, and the real truth is you ask, by doing an experiment, a question to nature, and in the most cases you do not get the answer. Okay, that's the answer. You get just one answer. That was a very stupid question. Please design a better experiment. So this is what really causes the scars when you do scientific research work. In Germany, we indeed had recent scandals concerning PhD theses and the corresponding doctor titles. In the most cases, that was in the humanities, where people just copied parts of other scientific works, maybe other PhD works, or publicly available material. That was really stealing. Okay, in some cases it was not proper citing.
Stealing. You are a lawyer. You shouldn't use the word stealing for such a thing.
Yeah, maybe I shouldn't. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, in those cases, the people who really stole things, well, we can call it like that. In some cases, it was just, or no, just in quotations, not properly citing the sources of what you cited. Okay. what you described, there's a mafia. Okay, I cannot confirm that. And every professor or every supervisor of a PhD thesis who did something like that would, of course, risk his own reputation, his job, and his livelihood. So I can only hope that there is no widespread abuse of that. Finding technological and scientific results in prior art. I mean, you were very explicit. You said we do not just want similarity or stuff like that. We want identical results already pre-published in the prior art. Is that correct, Martin?
Yes, correct.
Okay. You and I, we are patent attorneys, so that means there's no novelty. So identical, 100% overlap. Okay.
And not only from the meaning, but also literal overlap.
Yeah, okay. As I said, if you are a researcher in a field and every supervisor, every professor in a scientific or a technological field should be well aware of what is going on in his field, more or less worldwide. I can imagine that, let's say, 50 years ago, groups were putting efforts into one research theme, and there might have been similar groups over the world which did not publish or which did not publish in recognized publishing sources like journals or stuff like that. And I can imagine that in earlier times there was the possibility that there were parallel research efforts and the groups involved did not know that something similar or identical was going on. But the usual case is, you know, the scientific community because you meet other researchers, other groups on scientific congresses and symposia, and you very well know who's active in your business or in your research field and who is not. So if you find prior art, which is, let's say, 50 years old, then I can imagine why it could have been possible that some PhD thesis already collided with earlier prior art, which was not really publicly known or widely known. If you compare PhD theses which were drafted, let's say, 5 years ago or 10 years ago, where the internet was so dominant and where the electronic exchange of information is so prevalent that you simply know what is going on in the world. And if you then find prior art, then you can really argue, okay, if a PhD thesis covers a theme which has been known before, then it might have been fraud. That's my take on it right at the moment. But tell me about your experiences. So you found prior art and you contributed to uncovering some sort of fraud. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Bad news for the PhD degree holder, bad news for his supervisor, I guess.
Yeah, I was shocked because the tools that we use for our prior art searches in patents, they work perfect for invalidating PhD theses. Yeah.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
and that you know what? The reason why I'm bringing this up is not so much because I have interest in that business, because I find this is a business. Some people are willing to pay thousands of dollars or even tens of thousands of dollars in order to invalidate someone's PhD title, which I find inherently very funny. But because why would I pay for someone's hair to be cut? For me is a similar problem. So I mean, yeah. So and that comes with an inherent psychological problem. Why would I suffer a damage in order to cause someone else something that might even not be a damage because that someone would even not care or whatever. But okay, that's another problem. You can, as a patent attorney or not, as an attorney as such, you can become very rich if you have a lot of clients that work according to that pattern. Because when I was a very young attorney in my 20s, because I was a patent attorney at age 29, I met a lawyer and he told me how to get rich as a lawyer. And he said, you just need to find people that are willing to pay money for someone else to suffer. And then if you find out how that works, you must go into family law. And I said, okay. But no, it sounds a bit pervert to me, but yeah, okay. So and today I found out, no, not today, yesterday I found out there exists something like that in not family law, in I don't know, in peers law or whatever. People that are willing to invest money just to invalidate a PhD thesis. And the second thing that comes to my mind, what is the value of a PhD thesis? And that brings me to my next issue, because not in September, but in October or November, we will have a talk with the president of the Technical University of Munich. He already accepted the invitation, just he can not make it on the 18th of September, but he can make it in October or November easily. And then we are going to talk about why are there so many more publications in science from China than from the US and Germany combined. And I believe the two things are linked. And it's just my suspicion, and that's all. That's the only reason why I went into that rabbit hole. I don't have a PhD. My whole career in science was 2 months long, and then I became a patent attorney and innovator, inventor, or whatever. So I never went into science, and I don't even know the habits there. I'm just about to find out how it works. So, Roland, it seems to me that you're the only academic here in the round. Everybody's looking at you.
Everybody's looking at me. Okay. Interestingly, a couple of weeks ago, I read an article about increasing fraud in science. It's not about PhD thesis. It's about papers submitted to journals. So you indeed, meanwhile, can order publications which apparently have been examined and scrutinized by peer reviews, and you can submit them. Maybe I'll find the link again and I will post it in the group if that's possible. I guess with the advance of artificial intelligence, business models like this will become more and more lucrative for those who sell them and for those who want to exploit it. Well, of course, that's fraud. And if it's fraud, it has to be punished and it has to be stopped. Absolutely clear on that.
Yeah, just that fraud here is a wrong expression, same as stealing.
No, fraud is the correct expression. I mean, well,
no, fraud is if you present something as a fact, and that makes you shift, I would say, values from one side to another, and you would not have done that shift without knowing the truth behind what you have been told. That's a very general definition of fraud, and it also works if the shift is not going into your own pocket but into someone else's pocket. And I don't see where the fraud comes from when you submit a paper that has been, as you name it, stolen. I would say copied from someone else. So what is the fraud here? Maybe the use of the printing machine for the paper. Yes. Okay, that's a fraud. Yes. But the question
is, it's some sort of deception. Maybe the native speakers can elucidate a little bit on that. I mean, if I claim to be a PhD without having done the work, that's for me fraud. If I order a paper from some artificial intelligence, although I never did any scientific work, and although the data presented in this fake paper are just being created by an artificial intelligence or by some ghostwriter, then that's fraud to me as well. But okay.
I can tell you what that in the paper that currently I'm looking through, or no, not that we are looking through because I don't do it myself. There's an introductory section that tells what has happened in the area before that work was done. And that introductory section was copied together from 10 different books and papers. Literally.
Okay.
And
That's a problem of improper quotation.
yeah.
It should have been marked. Okay. Yes, we refer to what let's say the standard textbook in this field, and they say this has been done so and so and so in the past years and decades. That's a problem of improper quotation. And it should be if it's done grand scale throughout the whole publication, of course, that's a real problem.
I don't know. Seriously, I don't know. So what I know in the patent field, if you write a patent application, then you can take the pictures of the figures of another patent and use it in your own patent application. And in Germany, at least, that's not a copyright infringement because a patent application is an official publication of the government, and there is no copyright for those. And in other countries, it might be seen differently, but I've never seen a big problem because of a patent application has used the pictures, the figures of another patent application. So
yes. But you usually mark that as being not part of the application and not being part of the invention itself.
No, but what you would do is you draw your invention inside the I call it in quotation marks stolen, in the stolen figures. Yeah. So the stolen figure would be the basis, and then you draw in by hand your own invention, and then that's still a copyright infringement if the original piece was copyrighted, but under German law, patent publications are not under copyright. So you can do. Other countries may see that differently, but that's the German way where it stands. David, you post something. Please unmute your microphone and then.
Sure.
And then
I just did
your mustard, as we say in German.
There was a New York Times article on this problem of explosion of, low quality, copied, fraudulent papers, and an article in PNAS and Science magazines that I just posted as a quick reference to Roland's point. Okay. The fraud you're speaking of is sort of, if I'm suing you for fraud, I have to detrimentally change my position to the worse in order to have a claim for a civil claim for fraud. And the language is loose. That's fraud in the sense of a claim against another person for defrauding me, but you're sort of defrauding the public by this action and getting the credential and credibility you don't deserve. There's also, as you may know, the phenomenon of journal editors saying you better cite my journal or my papers if you want to get published in my journal, and stuffing citations that way, and people getting caught at it occasionally. So there's a lot of problems in science caused by bad behavior and, of course, amplified by AI. And the interesting question is whether AI might help solve them by picking up the copying. Or any of the tools you use for the PhD invalidation or for your own patent work using AI to enhance the search, or you don't trust it for that?
Roland, go ahead.
Yeah, it's really a general problem. AI can both solve the problem and contribute to the problem. I mean, you might be able to use AI tools to uncover such fraudulent actions, and you may also use AI to create them. That's some dichotomy, or how do you say, dichotomy, probably. So some ambivalent possibility which comes from AI. The problem is a long-standing problem in science. You still have this this principle of publish or perish. As a scientist, you are condemned to producing results, as many and as good results as possible. Otherwise, you don't get grants. So this is what drives people into taking such illegal measures. And yeah, I don't see any easy solution how to solve this problem. Same
Yeah,
holds true, of course, for inventors or for companies. They should produce as many results as possible just to make their claims, to ensure the basis for the existence of their own companies, patent rights, and also trademark rights and stuff like that. And in order to keep others from using their invention, so the more the more patents they have, the better for them. Martin, you are the expert on artificial intelligence. I mean,
What? Yeah, sure, but what's the question?
the question is whether there's a Hegelian thesis, antithesis, synthesis of causing the problem, fixing the problem, and moving to a next better stage.
exactly.
We got to throw Hegel into this somehow.
I personally, if you ask me, I would go very deep and I would abolish the government-funded science entirely. And I would just cut through this publication nonsense in order to tap into funding. But that's my very personal point of view. And I know that it would undermine the current system. And I'm not the chainsaw Millet from Argentina. I'm a very small figure in the whole picture. So I believe that accepting the existing system with all its fraudulent behavior as such is not acceptable.
Very interesting point of view. Okay, you would cut all government funding research. We all know the problem of research. If you say you cut governmentally funded research, that means you only want research which is privately funded. We know the problem, for example.
Most research is privately funded.
Sorry?
Most
Yuki, please.
Most research is privately funded.
Okay. Maybe that's the case. I don't know. I cannot either. I cannot comment on it. I simply don't know the numbers. But the problem is, if everything is privately funded, then you buy the research results which you want. I mean, we had these studies, let's say in tobacco industry. If you look at some research results which have been ordered by the tobacco industry, then smoking is good for your health. And if you look at research results funded by different organizations, it's bad for health. Same holds true for the consumption of meat, milk, whatever, Mediterranean food or whatever. Yeah, so for me, governmentally funded research is one way to ensure that there is some sort of independence in science. It's not absolutely risk-free to do that, because we still have one stage where independent research results can be falsified. That's when it comes to the moral integrity of the researchers. Now we are back at your problem. So if some professor has research funds from government which are independent, and if he still is inclined to falsify results, then you cannot do anything against it. But if you are completely dependent on one funding source for your results, then there's a higher probability that the results which you get might be biased somehow towards the direction in favor of your funding institution. So, okay. Any other thoughts on that?
That's the old vicious circle.
Yeah.
of explaining why you need bureaucracy. And yes, it's good, but wherever there's bureaucracy, there's fraud, and there is corruption. And no, but please, I have a question. Can we please not discuss this when we have the president of the Technical University of Munich in our talk?
You did not by any chance examine his PhD thesis, right?
I have no intention to do so. I just want to tap into the insight of people who are into innovation. That's
So Martin,
yes.
I'd like to propose an invention to you, which is half-baked. It needs improvement, which is that you and a few others start a clearinghouse to start publicly announcing people who have this problem and the results that back it up, so as to boycott or tarnish the reputations of not only the authors, but their supervisor, their university, and their publication. And if this becomes accepted, and perhaps the university should each agree to slightly fund it in order to improve their reputations. Again, the funding and profit, I don't yet understand. There could be a way of incenting a small group of people to check, not just publish. And if they're publishing that author A, Z, W, and Q are publishing terrible results in this terrible publication out of this university, which doesn't supervise, there would be incentive for people to clean up their act.
Okay.
I don't know quite how to do it.
David, I have bad news for you. Bad news for you. Number one, my life plan is very different. I have a calling, and that calling is to make growth. Before I said innovation, but people told me don't use innovation anymore, use growth. Promote growth among people. And the second is, if I really want to retire into a certain position, I know already I support an orphanage in Indonesia with about 1,000 orphans. And if I really want to donate my life to an organization, I would go there and try to help those 1,000 children to make a better life than what would have been there without me. So that's a very clear thing. So no, I must decline that thing. That's something for the public to recognize.
What if we got your orphans each an iPad and they start doing the research? Then they have a job and a reputation.
That's exactly my plan.
That's wonderful to hear.
Yeah, no, it's all about doing. My personal calling is to enable people to do distance learning, so that orphans in the jungle of Indonesia would get a academic degree without even seeing a university from inside. That if that is made true, then I believe a big part of my life went in the right direction. So
David, one remark. I mean, you proposed institutions to check publications and PhD theses. I think that already exists. There are groups outside who really regularly check all sorts of PhD theses and determine whether or not they have been validly awarded. So that's even maybe better than having institutions inside your own university, because they are completely independent.
Completely independent, I think I agree with you, would be the best way. 50 top universities funded it so that no one of them controlled it. But I didn't know there were such things, so that's wonderful to hear.
Yeah, I would rather now. Can we switch to something else? Because I made my point. I mean, I brought something from my. I'm an unusual patent attorney, and I'm uprooted from Germany.
Martin, before we switch to the point, one final remark.
Okay.
Because if it's okay for you, we still have half an hour.
I don't even know whether it's okay. It's just let me know.
Okay. No, if we open a topic, then we can close it. You just try to close it. But one final remark. I do not have lots of final remarks, but in this case, I have one. Because when I made a point for publicly funded research, you immediately switch to bureaucracy. Okay, I see your point about bureaucracy, but there's one point about publicly funded research which is really worth mentioning. If you only have application-oriented research, and as soon as you have privately funded research, you very, very often are strongly tied to application, then you close the door to unexploited areas, to blue oceans. I love to take this word into my mouth. There's one famous saying from Louis Pasteur, I think it is from him. He said there are two kinds of science, applied science and not yet applied science. Here ends the quotation, but the point is, by doing by doing free research not funded because somebody wants to get a special result, you can explore fields of science and technology which have not been explored before. They may be useless, they may turn out to be useless, but according to Louis Pasteur, virtually any kind of scientific discovery sooner or later finds some use. But to just enter these unknown fields, you need funding which is not tied to certain results to be achieved mandatorily. So this is the reason why I think basic research is absolutely necessary, and it must be research which should be absolutely free. And the only kind of research which can be achieved by doing that, is publicly funded research. So that's my final call for publicly funded
Roland,
research.
I have a very large collection of cases where such publicly funded research was just pure insane nonsense. And I have while you were talking, I even have a database for that. I collect those things in Evernote. And over the past 5 years or so, I believe I found 200 cases. And I'm only one person, right? Where things spent millions on some idiot case that there's one, even from my own university, a physicist, Harald Lesch. I believe this guy is really an idiot. And he warned that extraterrestrials could take over the Earth and then exploit the minerals that we have here. And I don't know how much he makes or so, but a few $100,000 a year, yes. And then he has some budget for promoting that. If I ever meet this guy in person, and that's not the only nonsense that he's telling, he even get a TV show where he's doing that on a serial basis. So he's a serial nonsense teller. But just to let you know. So I'm a very applied guy, and I believe in the core definition of innovation, which means that you need to do something novel that brings value with it. And value in my case is mostly money on the table.
Harald Lesch is a very known public figure in Germany. He started maybe 30 years ago telling about astronomy, astrophysics. Mm-hmm. And he, as you correctly say, he's very present on TV shows, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. I want to quote some episode from what's that? Independence Day, maybe the movie from. I think we know this movie. All of us know this. And there's one nice scene. The aliens arrive at Earth, and somebody asks the question, "Do you really think they flew 100 million light years just to start a war?" And the answer probably is, yeah, what else would they fly for 100 million years for, 100 million light years for? So if we ever encounter aliens, they must have a reason to come here. So when European discoverers started exploring the world outside of Europe, they wanted to do exactly that. They didn't set course west, north, east, or whatever. just for the hell of it. They wanted to find new territories where they could exploit resources. Gold, in most cases, silver, whatever. Potatoes were brought from South America. They also were some sort of commodity which did not exist in Europe, and they were the things they were looking for just to justify the expenses of all these explorations. So I do not think that, yeah, Michael, yeah.
Roland, so people who watch Star Trek 50 years ago, Gene Roddenberry, at the start of every episode, he said the mission of the Enterprise is to seek out new life and new civilizations, to boldly go where no one has gone before. They used to say where no man has gone before, but the women complained. So that now they say where no one has gone before. So your comment and Martin's comment about aliens, you know, if they come here, I don't think it's to make war. They could be the reverse of Captain Kirk. They're seeking, it's because they're able to space travel, just like Columbus was able to cross the Atlantic. Okay. So, you know, I guess there is a paradox. Why haven't they come so, you know, for so many million years? There may be some evidence with, you know, the Mayan Indians and who built the pyramids and all that. But as far as we know, they haven't been here yet. And the question is, why not? If Carl Sagan's right and there's billions and billions of stars and planets, half of them are probably more advanced and half are more backward, if all averages apply. So the ones that are more advanced from eons in time in the future and distance, traversing light speed and wormholes, why haven't they been here? And the sad part, I think, Stephen Hawking said, the sad part would be, what if we're truly unique in the universe? We're the only living creatures. So I'll let you ponder all that.
Yeah, I know the discussions. It's the questions, if they exist, why haven't they been here? Because there are famous calculations that it probably might take 10 million years to colonize the whole Milky Way. And if there are so many civilizations out there, they should have arrived here already. Okay.
Well, the idea, Roland, is they've discovered wormholes already, so they can jump space and time, just like a blink of an eye. So traveling half across the universe should be no problem for them, because with quantum theory and entanglement,
sorry to interrupt you, Michael and Roland. But I'm a very down to earth.
Yeah, we're off topic. We're
engineer,
off topic.
And I'm also a motorbike mechanic by training. And what you are discussing leads far beyond what my imagination.
Sorry about that, Martin. Roland started it when he talked about aliens.
A very simple guy, and what I want to help inventors to be more successful and companies to not go bankrupt by their own inventions and innovation.
Now, Martin, one other thing quickly. You guys have been talking about private and public in research. So a question for both of you. A lot of R&D is out of shareholders' money, because publicly held companies worldwide take a % of their P&L and they put it toward R&D. So if a drug company uses shareholders' money at Ciba-Geigy to invent a new vaccine or whatever, but they keep it under wraps and they keep the intellectual property. The public paid for that. The shareholders paid for that, but you can't parcel it all out to millions of shareholders. So what do you think? And if government does it, it becomes public domain in the United States. So if Stanford University works in microbiology and they're doing it with even students' tuition money, if the government puts money into university research at Stanford and they invent something, that becomes freedom of information for everybody to benefit from. So how do you segment private versus public when in fact publicly held companies fund an awful lot of research?
They usually start funding the research when the basic results, which have been found by publicly funded research projects, show that there's interest and some gain to be gained from further research. I see your problem, but that's the way research has been done in Germany for decades. the university starts and open up a completely new field. And once there is a glimpse of applicability, privately funded research comes in.
But
It's not a
Roland,
perfect system.
companies do it for the money. Shareholders want value from the company's stock and so forth and growth. So if they do it for the money and a new drug is discovered that's a blockbuster like Lipitor or Humira at AbbVie, you know, a $20 billion drug at AbbVie called Humira. They did it for the money. I mean, they did it for all of mankind to be philanthropic about it, but they also did it for the money. And still that intellectual property until all the patents expired on Humira, no one could copy it as a biosimilar. You know the story. And $20 billion over 20 years of the life of the Humira patent. Add up the numbers. The shareholder made a fortune. That's why Abbott spun off AbbVie. You know, it's one of the most successful drugs in the world. $20 billion in sales per year, even now with the patents expired. One drug, 20 billion a year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but what's your point and what's your problem?
My point is the research that you guys said, private versus public. It's almost like public has to be a university or a government think tank like the energy department or what have you, and private has to be an individual inventor like Thomas Edison or what have you. But again, companies take 1 or 2% and put it into R&D worldwide for the last 100 years, and who owns that intellectual property and who benefits from the research? Well, the company keeps it under hat. The shareholders benefit from the money, but the intellectual property never gets out until there's a patent. And many patents, as Martin and you both know, don't really give the trade secret for Coca-Cola, do they?
Well, I don't have any problems with intellectual property held by private companies. I also don't have any problems with their making money for that because somebody has to bring those drugs to the market. And usually
Well,
that's
when you say private company, Roland, I assume you include publicly held companies that have shares on stock exchanges and investors that, you know, millions of investors all over the world basically are funding that out of their profitability and the shares of the company.
Yes, that's what I understand by privately held companies. You're right. You have shareholders.
So by private, you include companies that are publicly traded.
Yes, of course.
Oh,
No,
all
yeah,
right.
I do.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Now,
I don't know about what you were discussing. So anyway, what I want to say is the following. We came here because to this point because I told you that we can use the prior art search tools for invalidating PhD theses, and my conclusion was that this system is rotten in itself to a degree, and the question is whether we yeah, I don't know, should even look at that seriously. So the next thing is, today I had a very insightful meeting, and maybe that would carry us another 14 minutes. I believe it's not enough because it would lead further than what 14 minutes can do, but also it gives some insight of what my 4x4 matrix does for patent attorneys. Because I was today at a meeting with an inventor, very smart guy, in his 60s. And he was a successful inventor, or he is a successful inventor, which means he has sold a few of his inventions and made good money with that. And he's still living from that money. Of course, a bit chaotic. It's not a company that he has founded. But so now he has a new invention. And the new invention is related to what he did before. And he's caught in the last century's cycle. Means you need to show that something works before you can sell it. And he has a position that probably Stephen Key, he was here before, but Stephen Key is the one who deals with that. He's an innovator who's developing an idea to a certain stage and then tries to find a much bigger organization to leverage on that. in order to make money from that, and then he would hopefully be in the boat when it is about reaping the fruits of that venture. And of course, meetings with those people always are very long-winded because they try to convince you of the value of the technical idea, which for me is not a problem, because for me, initially, every technical idea has some value unless it proves that the market doesn't want it. And that unless is never present in the mindset of the people that I'm talking with as a patent attorney. Never. Otherwise, they wouldn't talk with me like that. They would come from a different angle. And I was sitting there and listening for half an hour. And I was so happy that I could fall back onto the old structure and trying to find out where is he in the technology readiness level of the current thing very early, before even a prototype. And is there any market response? Yes, but very negative, because he's talking to people that his invention would eat into, because they are the now and not the new. He has the new, and he's with his invention, he's clearly aiming at making the existing solution obsolete. So he's, at least to me, very obviously aiming at starting a new S-curve for companies in that technical area. And I must re-emphasize, it's mechanical engineering. And which I find surprising, because not many inventions are made today in mechanical engineering. I mean, real inventions, not just improvements. And so he was asking whether he should put more money into R&D in order to promote his idea and the conceptual model that he has into a prototype. And my answer was no, of course not. And he was very surprised. And I was about reiterating what my 4x4 approach is all about, which means that you, before you invest money into further R&D, find out what the market says. And are you solving a problem that is really there, or is it something that only you perceive to be a problem? And he was very surprised because of that. And I believe we have only 3 patent attorneys here, which is a lot already. This is David, right, and Roland. And I wanted to share that experience with you, not that you copy that, but it just opens your mind that having a structure to fall back to once you encounter a standard problem is so helpful, not only for us as patent attorneys, but also for them, because you literally save their life, because they are ready to sell the mother-in-law's retirement home just in order to build a prototype. And a prototype is expensive, especially in Singapore.
Yeah, interesting observations, and thanks for providing that framework. I have to admit, among those 3 patent attorneys who are in this round, you are the most unusual one, because you are acting much more like a business consultant than a patent attorney. I agree with you. I mean, before investing money into an idea, which maybe will never reach the market because the market doesn't want it, I would do the market response test as well. I have to admit then, when you talk to our inventors, they usually don't ask these questions at all. They have a business, they have ideas, they proceed on this business, and we rarely give any advice on how to pursue this business. We are strictly patent attorneys and advise and counsel on patent issues. You, by comparison, really, as I just said, are a business consultant. You actively interfere with their progress on the market. That's good. It carries some risk, because I probably imagine that you do not all these risk evaluations which a business consultant would do. You just do it on a qualitative level, not in a quantitative level. But what you say makes sense. So coming back to your example, before building a prototype for something which maybe not wanted by the market at all, I just spend the money on finding out the market response. That's my take on it.
It's an
Sounds like
interesting
you put
question, Martin.
risk at the forefront.
Say again, Joe?
It sounds like you're once again putting risk at the forefront. The risk is that the product doesn't sell, so you might as well do things before you go and make the product, right?
Yeah, that's what I understand by Martin's approach. Makes sense to me to some degree.
Martin, I wonder how much the iPhone from Steve Jobs fits your 4x4. How much did he figure out that there was a demand for this before he put enormous effort into
Yeah.
building it?
I don't know, but I did some research on that question, and Steve Jobs was a guy who took a different approach. He said, if my market does not recognize what my product does for them, it's not my problem. It's the problem of the market. So they need to know more, so that they will understand how I could help them. And I would say, from my personal experience, the point when I switched from a Nokia phone with an email connector to my Outlook to a iPhone was when I saw that the emails on the iPhone work much better than on the Nokia. And the bigger screen with all the features that the screen could do also was not really something that attracted my attention. But I know that I'm very focused on that. But I agree that asking the market for what innovation they need is not always the best method to promote an innovation. I give you another example from another area. Your president, Trump, he revived an area in Manhattan. Yeah, sorry, it's not my president, it's your president. So, yeah, what to say?
Please call him T-Rump.
Okay, no, I won't, because I'm respectful. And so what he did, he developed an area of Manhattan that was underdeveloped and not wanted by the market, which is the purchaser of real estate, by saying, okay, I go there and I turn around the entire region by showing them why it's good to be there. It's a bit like, yeah, can you turn that wheel? And when we talk about that in the Ansoff matrix, it has nothing to do with R&D, where most of my clients come from, but it's more a question of innovative marketing and whether you can pay the costs for that, because it's linked. The Ansoff matrix has two dimensions. You can develop your R&D and you can develop your marketing. And only if you do both at the same time, which means you address an entirely new market with an entirely new product, you are in the non-incremental innovation, and that leads to breakthrough innovation, or on a smaller scale to transfer innovation. That's Rich McDonald's case, who's also here in the chat. So you are taking me to an area in the risk area, and Joe, that's your trigger, where the normal inventors that I meet as a patent attorney are not located.
Say, Martin.
Yes.
Martin, months ago, I mentioned the concept of demand pull versus supply push. So innovation that's demand pull is basically like Iacocca going out and asking people, what do you want in a car? And he came up with the Mustang instead of the Edsel. supply push would be maybe the first jet aircraft where people didn't know what a jet engine was. They just wanted to get from New York to Los Angeles faster and safer. So the people in the aerospace industry did a supply push strategy. In other words, you've got a better mousetrap, the world will beat a path to your door. They knew that the market wanted faster and safer, as the story goes. But supply push can have risk. Demand pull, if you do your market concept testing and you get a statistical winner out there, you're gonna launch the iPhone. So Steve Jobs realized that computers on phones were a biggie, and user-friendly and icon iPhones are a heck of a lot better than a Nokia or a Palm Pilot, or a BlackBerry. So I don't know if he was supply push or demand pull, but I think it was more supply push by Steve Jobs to really revolutionize the usability of a
Michael,
phone.
you're entirely right. This is an entirely new dynamics. I'm talking about me being a small patent attorney, and I'm caught in my daily practice, and I want to help people to do a better job or better fulfillment in their calling or whatever by showing them where they are. And yes, you can push a certain innovation, but that opens up an entirely new, how to say, universe, maybe. And that's where I'm coming from. It comes with an entirely new risk level, and people always think, oh, I can do this or that, and then it's just my choice of doing that. But they don't realize that it's more risky what they're doing. And if you want to be successful, you better go for the low-hanging fruits, which are obviously less risky.
So Martin, I'm going to try and answer.
Sorry, David, go ahead.
Sorry, let me just finish one thought, because I know we're going to end soon, which is, if you're a genius like Steve Jobs, you can violate the rules, which include using Martin's terrific 4x4 matrix. But if you're not a genius, it's a lot better to follow the rules and use 4x4.
It's about, climbing mountains, David. But that's
here, Martin. One other thing, real quick, before we close.
Yes.
An S curve, a new S curve, usually comes from supply push, not demand pull. Okay, so if someone's on a current S curve that's starting to reach mature, someone's on an S curve that's very mature, like prop aircraft.
I will
new S curve. Yeah.
In the rest of my life, I will quote you in order to promote my own profession. Yes. Thank you,
Mike.
Mike.
As a patent attorney, Martin, Roland says you're unusual, and I have to agree, because the patent attorneys I've known, they would take my money to do a filing, even if they knew that it was a horse's ass invention. I didn't have any of those, but people who do, 90% of patents never make it to the market. So, as a patent attorney, you are. Yeah, so as a patent attorney, Martin, I give you applause, because you'll tell an inventor, this is a waste of your money. Most patent attorneys will take the money because that's what they were trained to do, file and prosecute infringements and take the money. And so you're as a business consultant, how many times, Martin, have you told an inventor who wants to file a patent, go away, I'm not going to do it, you're wasting your money? Have you done that?
Of course. But
okay, well, most will not. Most are like divorce lawyers. A divorce lawyer is not going to try and reconcile the marriage. He just wants the money.
No,
so, Michael, let me give you the idea. It's a waste of your money, but as long as you waste it on me, it's okay.
Okay, that's a nice
Michael,
word. Bye, I close now. Shut up, everybody.
No,
bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Okay, Martin, one last question. When exactly will the president come? I didn't note the date. When exactly will that be the case?
This year.
This year, okay, but no fixed date, right?
No
yet.
Fixed date. Goodbye.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.